repeating kind of the notion that index funds will outperform any professional investor anytime. He's really, really obsessed with those index funds. So rather than just keep talking about the same thing over and over, I did actually make a PowerPoint that I'm going to share here. But Dad, I know that so Dad presented to UNB medical school students a while ago at UNB, and he has this amazing presentation, and there are some really, really great topics from it that I asked him if he could just kind of touch on, because it all blends together. And so, Dad, if you wouldn't mind maybe starting us off there and just touching on some of that life knowledge that we all need.
Okay, thank you, Jill, and thank you, teachers, for engaging in this. Gosh, it just seems to me it's something that students never hear about, oftentimes at home or certainly in the school. And when I
Mhm.
lectured at UNBSJ to some med students, I got these emails back afterwards. Dear Mr. Shaw, thank you for doing this. Nobody's ever talked to us like that before. And so much of it is common sense. And a book I like better than this one that we've just looked at, it's called The Automatic Millionaire. And
Mhm.
I'm not crazy about the name of it, but it is a good book. It's a very common sense type of book. And so, first of all, thank you as teachers for engaging in this. Um, One of the staples that he talks about in this book, and what I talked about to the med students, is don't get yourself in credit card debt. It's just disastrous. And I did some examples of 3,000 credit card debt, making the minimum monthly payment, which a lot of people would do, while interest is accruing at 18%. It's higher than that now. Will take 13 years to pay off $3,000. And it'll take about $5,000 to pay off $3,000. So it makes no sense whatsoever. But it seems to me the culture, the world we live in, uh, it's like we deserve everything right out of the gate. Nobody has to wait anymore and earn money. You just go out and buy whatever you want and run up the debt. And so I think as teachers, if you can instill that, and I suspect you're all dealing with different grade levels, but instill that in your students. And I think one of the crummy things about this is when you graduate from university, I don't know whether the registrar gives these credit card companies a list of names or not, but after I graduated with my CA degree, chartered accountant degree, I was inundated with all these offers of credit cards and loans, and sometimes it's very tempting because we want to buy these things. But anyway, that's one of the main things that I talk to these med students about. Um, and the other thing that the whole theme of The Automatic Millionaire, unlike this book where he's a big Vanguard supporter, I don't know whether he's getting a kickback from Vanguard or not, but
Probably.
yeah, probably, yeah.
Yeah.
But the other thing is you don't have to make a ton of money. It's all about a disciplined saving strategy. And by that, what the author of this book meant, and which I guess I employed in my working career, and my wife as well, is that we would pay ourselves first. I'm sure you've all heard that term, but basically what it means is this: that if you just take a portion of your paycheck and have it taken out, so if you don't see the money, you're not going to spend it, because we're all tempted to spend everything we have. If you don't see it, you can't spend it. And so again, that's very common sense. It's a choice, and banks will set it up for that. You can have, automatically your employer can send 10% or whatever to the bank and put it in RSP or TFSA or that type of thing. If it's not automatic, it usually fails because I think the mindset is, well, if I have something left over at the end of the month, then I'll do something with it. I'll save it. Well, guess what? You probably, if that's the mindset, you probably won't have anything left over. And so, so that's critical, to buy things that you need, not necessarily what you want. And there has to be a balance to that. And I guess I've told Jill about a secretary that used to work for me, who was practicing. And she and her husband were married 12 years, never took a vacation or anything like this. She was so, I think she sat in on too many of my meetings. And she was so focused on saving that then I started to say, Denise, you know, there has to be a balance to this. You've got to enjoy yourself along the way too. And so it's funny, one year she asked me for a week's vacation in January when we're really wrapped up, we're busy. And and without pay, she said, "Can I have a week's vacation without pay?" And I'm not supposed to say this, but I said, "No, you can't have a week without pay, but you can have it with pay. I'm so glad that you and your husband are taking vacation." And every year since, I think they've gone down to the Caribbean and they've had this wonderful vacation. So, you know, I have to balance what I say because it does have to be a balancing act. You know, none of us know how long we're going to live, and so we have to enjoy ourselves along the way. But if you do that, and if you instill that in your kids, and particularly in med students, because they're at a point where they're going to start to make a lot of money, you know, lives become more stress free. The number one reason for breakup in marriages, statistically, is money. And most people go to work, they make money, they spend money, and 8 out of 10 people live paycheck to paycheck. And that's just the reality. That's not my words. That's statistically the way it works. So I'll just leave you with that. But that's common sense stuff, unrelated to what the Millionaire Teacher talks about. He's all about investing, as Jill said. He's very pro index funds. One thing I do like about what he said, and I've kind of rebalanced our own portfolio as a result. He uses the rule of thumb. You take your age minus 10. And I'm 74 now, I'm old. And so minus 10 would be 64. So he's saying to me, you should have 64% of your investments in fixed income and the balance in equities. And of course, as we get, as you teachers get closer to retirement, it's a good thing to think about. So I did like that he talked about. And but Jill, I don't want to take your time, so I'll just...
No, I made these slides and it's just a lot of what you're talking about right now. So just saving early and often, living below your means, like all of the same kind of things, automating your savings. I know something I've read in, I think, The Automatic Millionaire, which I've tried to do, which is hard, is when you get that tax return or when you get that raise to just, if you're living without it already, try to keep living without it and take that extra and allocate it to savings, right? If you're doing okay without it, then that's maybe how you grow your savings. It's kind of worked for me a little bit, I guess. So then the next chapter, index funds beat expensive professional investors. He's really gung-ho about this topic, and he explains the high fees associated with actively managed funds and how they eat into your returns. And I know that we've talked about this quite a bit in past meetings. And then before I just kind of open it up to discussion here, the last rule was you can build wealth with a teacher's salary. And he talks about how to build it on a modest income, such as that as a teacher. How he did it, like in those first few chapters, was bananas. Like I remember reading back that he like didn't turn up the heat in his house and wore a wool cap to bed in the winter. Like that's extreme. And that's kind of like what Dad was saying about his administrative assistant. Like you can kind of go off the rails and become really extreme with saving, but you have to enjoy life too, and live your life. So he argues anyone can build wealth with a disciplined approach regardless of their income level. The importance of investing early. So it's all kind of like the same thing that I found in these 3 chapters. But I'm going to stop sharing that now. I'm going to open it up just where this is our last meeting. We won't keep you long, but any final questions or anything that you want to talk about in terms of like reflecting on this book study?
I still found it a bit overwhelming. I found it, a lot of this knowledge, it was above my pay grade. Like I just found I didn't connect with a lot of what he was saying. I do understand I have some mutual funds and I'm thinking, okay, I need to get rid of those now and switch them to index funds if I can. But I mean, I have 3 children of my own that are in their 20s, and one has done very well for himself and one is married and they are doing okay, and then the other one is in credit card debt. She's got creditors calling her, and so I just find it hard. I'm not teaching high school, but in thinking about if I were teaching high school, how do we give those words of wisdom about wants versus needs and, so on? Like, I've tried as a parent and I've struggled with that because, you don't want to tell them if they're working and they're making money,
Mhm.
you want them to kind of make mistakes on their own. But I mean, the one that's, mommy's bailing her out every month because the companies are calling,
Mm.
so how, Jim or Jill, even, do you have some advice about how do you make that resonate with them? Like, I mean, we're talking and they're like, yeah, yeah, yeah. And now I've got one that's in such a pickle that, she's 28 and she's
Yeah.
struggling, and I feel so bad for her, but, I don't know what to do.
Jim?
It's a tough balance, having raised 3 girls um, who are incredible in every way, even with finances. It's a tough balance, but one of the things that my wife and I, Jill's mom and I, determined is that we would not be enablers
Right.
on a continuing basis. We've helped the girls certainly, and continue to, and that type of thing. But I think when you enable them and perhaps bail them out every month, if the spending habits haven't changed, then I don't think that's the answer. So that would be my.
Yeah.
But
I
it's
know
tough.
she has gotten a second job recently. She did listen, and I said, you obviously need to get a second job because you can't. She lives in Fredericton,
Mhm.
and I just said you have to do this in order to make improvements. And so she has paid off one card. So I am seeing the improvements, and
Yeah.
and even the Costco, the card. I mean, we share the membership, but mommy always pays the whole thing. And this month she sent me half of it and I just about fell over. So she is working on it,
Good.
but it's
Yeah.
like, I've talked to all 3 of them, the same message, the same, my words of wisdom, and yet here we are. So,
Yeah.
with young people, how do we, make them think beyond, oh yeah, yeah, to, oh my goodness, this, I really could make a difference.
I guess stories I've heard from teachers is sometimes they do have to learn the hard way, and they learn when they try to get cars or mortgages and they see their
Mm,
credit scores, right? And then they
true.
realize that their credit score is important, and it's just almost like a life lesson, unfortunately.
Mm,
Um, yeah, and everyone has such a personality and everyone's so different.
mhm.
Like it's so hard, and I don't have kids, so I don't know, but I just know telling like high school, I would tell them stories and make things relevant. Like actually my partner Brandy at FCMB tells the story that her son wanted to order these amazing shoes from the States, and he ordered them, and they arrived, and then he didn't realize he had to pay duty and didn't know what that was. And then, his parents said, well, this is on you. Like, we're not paying this duty. So then
Right.
he did it. And it was such a life lesson that, oh my gosh, like this is what happens when I order from the US. And so, but they watched him go through
Mm,
it and like,
it's true.
and so it's just, I think about stories like that. Laura, do you have a comment or?
Just a couple. One
Yeah.
just quick came to mind. I saw an interview recently with Michelle Obama, and she was teasing how her daughters are out living on their own now, and they came over to visit their daughters at their house, and the daughters were going on about how much cheese it cost and that her mom was eating, and said, like, Mom, do you know how much I spent on this cheese? And she's like, yeah, I know. You never complained about it when I was paying for it. Anyways, I thought it was cute and put
Yeah,
me in mind of this. But
yeah,
um
yeah.
my thought or question or put out to the panel is thinking in terms of elementary grades and how teachers often at that stage have like incentives in the class where kids work for behavior
Mm,
bucks or
mhm,
a class party on Friday or whatnot. But it would be
mhm,
really neat if there was a system, and maybe this already exists, I don't know, but that incorporates some of this stuff in terms of like interest and saving. And yeah,
mhm,
you can spend it now, but if you wait
mhm,
till next Friday, you can get
mm,
two, or like
mhm,
that type of
mhm.
idea.
Yeah, yeah, that is a great idea. for sure. Heather, I know your girls aren't, are not, high school aged yet. Ivy and Violet, right? Are they still in middle? So you're not
Well,
dealing with.
Violet's coming to high school next year. Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So do you deal with anything yet? Probably
Well,
not.
they're, like they want the expenses, well, Violet in particular, she's getting older, wants the expensive sneakers and this kind of thing and all that. But she does work. She has a babysitting job. And Ivy, who's 11, also works a little bit. She walks dogs in the neighborhood. And I got them both bank accounts and try to like show them, like, think how much you had to work to get those sneakers,
Mhm.
like how many babysitting hours and is it worth it? And that
Yeah,
kind of,
that's so good.
yeah. It was fun today though. My grade 11s, we were talking about, they didn't even know, some of them didn't even know what the word mortgage was. And then we got
Wow.
talking about, like, I had an old pay stub and I was like, look how much I pay for medical insurance and dental insurance. They had no idea
Yeah.
that that wasn't covered in Medicare. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
just talking about all the things that it costs to live your life, like they don't even
Yeah.
know. And I was the same. I remember being exactly the same, not knowing. And I
Yeah.
think just more conversations around those
Yeah.
topics with our own kids and with our students, regardless of their age, is
Yeah.
important.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I did webinars this morning, that are recorded that any of you can show your classes on fraud, cyber scams, phishing scams, like online shopping scams. It was so well done. And it's on my website. Just any knowledge like that is so important. I had no idea anything coming out of high school.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's 10 to 4, so I want everyone to be able to get out and enjoy the day. If there's any final questions, comments, I would love to do the Automatic Millionaire in the fall book study if anyone wants to do that or has another suggestion. And it would be neat, I think, if I brought in some partner involvement too. Like I work with a lot of partners. Dad would still be the VIP, but we could bring in some partners too, to share their knowledge. So it's something that I hope to grow next year in this job.
Can I say one other thing, Jill?
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
a point of interest. After I read the book and I talked to my
Yeah.
financial planner and I went in and I was like, I'm changing all of this. And she was like, what are you talking about? You're crazy. And anyway, I said, I'm reading and I Googled it, blah, 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 and about how
Yeah.
index funds give you more of a return than mutual funds. And she's like, I don't believe it. I want to see it. So in a year, we're going to meet, we're going to compare. So it'll be curious to
Wow.
see what's going to happen.
Yes,
Because I don't know what's going on.
I would love your feedback like next year going through
I'll
it to kind of.
try.
So Heather, are you managing it yourself? Are you doing like
Yes.
Questrade?
I am. I'm not real good at it yet. I'm figuring it out.
I love that. Good
Yeah.
for you.
Have any of you heard of the quantum AI? I get blitzed all the time
Yeah.
on the internet about that. And
Yeah.
they even have engaged celebrities to talk about it. And through artificial intelligence, it's based on cryptocurrency, which I know nothing about. I'm not comfortable with. And they talk about investing $250 and, within a week, it'll be 1,100. Within a month, it'll be X number of dollars. And I just go back to the old saying, if it sounds too good to be true,
Yeah.
it is too good to be
Probably
true.
too good to be
And
true.
I don't know the
Yeah.
downside of it either. They talk about these gains, but if it goes down, are you on the hook? Some clients of mine previously, I don't know if you girls have heard of Lloyd's of London, but it was a quick, a get rich quick scheme. And a lot of smart people, lawyers and some, particularly doctors, invested in that. And then it went bankrupt and they were on the hook. They didn't know they were on the hook because they didn't read the fine print. And so you need to be very careful of this. And also junk bonds that the author talks about in this book. If it's paying 8% when the going rate is paying 4%, well, gosh, they must really need the money to offer me that kind of rate of return. Since reading the book, actually, my wife and I have sold some mutual funds. And and again, because of our age, is trying to rebalance, this whole thing of fixed versus equity. And we were about 75 equity, 25 fixed. And it's worked. The banks have been fabulous for us during, the last number of years we've invested. But at this point in our lives, it's time to probably start rebalancing. So I've been doing that and sold some mutual funds, put some in GICs where I could get a return of around 4.5%, which is certainly better than it used to be. When I was, when I was around 20, 25, started working, Canada Savings Bonds were paying 20% back then.
Whoa,
It was amazing, but
a while.
anyway, I like your comments, Laura and Heather and Lindy. Parenting never ends. We all know that. And it's a lifelong job. And I think a lot of this has to happen in the home. And your spouse has to be on the same page. That again is so important that you both think about this the same. If one is a spendthrift and the other isn't. And that's why I said it's the number one reason for breakups in marriages. So,
Yeah.
So good
That's
for you.
what broke
Great
us up.
ideas.
Yeah, that happened to
We
you.
we had a
Yeah.
farm. Well, we had a farm and he didn't want to spend any money except for the farm. And you have a house to look after and so every month there was always issues. And that's really at the end of the day, 15 years later, I just couldn't do it anymore.
Right.
So yeah. And that's again, these kids, these conversations need to be occurring about expectations of this stuff and credit and
Mhm.
building equity and all of this. Like, do they even know what equity is? Like you said, Heather, that they didn't know the word mortgage. So do they know what equity is? And so we really and capital, you can keep putting money into capital, but if you never have any returns from that capital, eventually you're going to be cash poor. So
Yeah.
there's different things that they need to have these conversations as they're coming out, because some kids today too, I find they come out with expectations that they're going to own a business right out of high school and they're going to do this and they're going to do that and they're going to have a new car and they're going to have a new house. And we started out with, I had milk crates for furniture for a while when I started out.
Mm.
It's very different now from when my age. I'm 56. So it's very different, the generation, even my kids, seeing the expectations they had. Yeah.
Just, no, that's a great point. I see that Sharon has her hand up and Laura, just quickly, well, yeah. So Laura, do you want to go first?
Sure. When Jim had mentioned that he was lecturing with the new med students, I was thinking what an opportunity it would be to intentionally invite new teachers to come to something like this too. And then the other thing that was like an aha moment for me that would be relevant for the high school students was that, those pair of shoes don't cost $200. They cost, 3 hours of or however many hours of your time that it took to earn that money. And
Yeah.
that to this day, that still resonates me when I'm like, yeah, no, not worth the 3 hours that it would have took me to earn the money to pay for that.
Yeah, that's a
But
great,
thank you,
great
Jill.
perspective. Yeah, no, absolutely. Sharon, last comment.
Thank you. Just a quick question. Actually,
Yeah.
I have grandchildren, young grandchildren. Sort of thinking there, because I didn't do any of this with children,
Mhm.
or myself. So any suggestions? Where to start? I've got them with the bank accounts open.
Well,
Yeah.
I think if your children aren't going to pay attention to it.
Oh, they will.
Oh, will they? Okay.
Yes.
All right. Well, it seems to me if your children, Sharon, are astute about it, that, that I would leave it in their hands to deal with your grandchildren.
But Sharon, do you mean what can you do for them? Like open an RESP kind of thing? Is that what you mean?
Yes.
Like, yeah,
Yes.
okay. So Dad, would that be, like, I know that, yeah,
Something we did with actually Jan and Jill and Brittany paid into our ESPs, as soon as they were born until they went to university. It was a big help, certainly because 3 kids in university isn't cheap, and particularly today. So Sharon, that's a good idea. Something like that, a TFSA. It was a friend of mine at the gym who retired as a cop in his, I think it was in early 50s. And he said his grandparents bought him a few shares in Royal Bank every year, his birthday or Christmas or whatever. And at the time he thought, what a lousy gift, a share of the Royal Bank. And but he retired in his early 50s. So it makes good sense in that scenario.
yes, very much enjoyed the help from the old RESP doing my business degree at UMP Fredericton. And, eating bread or peanut butter and fluff sandwiches in those days.
And the other thing, Jill, we
Yeah.
encourage all of you girls to have summer jobs,
Yeah.
That wasn't an option. You had to
Yeah,
pay your way yourself and,
yeah.
yeah.
I
In fact,
remember the grade 8 Ottawa trip at Lawrence School. All my friends' parents gave them the money and I had to clean Dad's office every Friday after school. I would walk there and I'd be like cleaning the filthy stairs in the winter to get money for that trip. So yeah. A school of hard knocks.
it didn't hurt you.
It was good. I appreciated it. Anyway, it's 3:58. I want to say thank you so much for joining this book study, and I hope that you'll think about joining again next year. I'm gonna kind of put feelers out there for any suggested books. I really like The Automatic Millionaire, and then there's another one that's good. The Wealthy Barber is also a pretty good one. And then there's a book called The Latte Effect, also by David Bach, that I really like. So so happy to have you join, and I hope to see as many people as I can at the in-person dinners, and it's my treat. And Lindy, I'm gonna look for kits to send you. Anyone else that teaches elementary, if you want a kit, I'm gonna be ordering some kits, like money kits for classes. So, and if there's anything that that other teachers need or want to better facilitate financial literacy, let me know. I can support kits or books or anything like that. So thank you. Thank you so much, everyone. And thanks, Dad, so much for your expertise and your support with this. It's been great.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank
Thanks,
you.
guys.
Enjoy the weather.
Enjoy your get together. I'm so jealous, but
Oh, I know.
I
we'll
just
be
did
thinking of
Fredericton
you.
last weekend, so I can't go again
You
right
can't
away.
go again.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Lindy. Thanks
All
for
right.
participating. Okay,
Okay,
bye-bye.
talk to you soon. Bye.
You too. Bye-bye.